bit about the history and how, for instance, the big band era begat the jazz, the kind of jazz you do now, and the differences in that. And if you could explain some of the nuances to my audience, then we'll all be with a common vocabulary. Are you good with that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Basically, you were talking about some of my influences, most notably Duke Ellington, Count Basie. Their music starts back at a time where American popular music was dance music, and mostly due to technology, the lack of amplification, in order to have a dance, you needed a band rather than a turntable. You needed an actual live band, and since there was not amplification, the band had to be large, hence the big band, which is the jazz orchestra. We call it jazz orchestra today, but it's essentially a big band, usually comprised of brass and woodwinds.
And you're a brass player, right? You always were a brass player. I was reading. You started out with trumpet, is that correct?
I started my very first...
Recorder.
Oh, recorder. How could we forget?
Yay, recorder.
Shout out to all music teachers who forced their students to play recorder. It actually,
you know?
it really did. It really piqued my interest in music in general. I was not... I liked music. Music was a big part of my home, but I never thought of myself as a musician or wanting to pursue music until we had our mandatory recorder in 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, I decided to start on band, and trumpet was my first choice of instrument. And my teacher switched me to baritone, horn, and trombone shortly there. Well, she felt that I would really excel more in trombone, more so than trumpet, just because of my physical, we call it the embouchure brass. It's basically your lips and the muscles in your mouth that allows you to produce a sound. And
I tried to play saxophone those many years ago, and I learned what, actually that was, I was told, was the easiest embouchure of all the instruments that I could choose, and I still could not do it. So I have nothing but respect for those people that have managed to mutilate their mouths so that they can be expert at such a beautiful instrument, you know?
But and I know what you're saying too about the lips. For your audience, Dan, who might not know too much about jazz, I've heard this before as well, that for the trumpet, you can't have too big of lips.
Right.
Is that true?
I mean, that is true for the most part, because you're buzzing your lips at a really high frequency. Mm-hmm. So if you have really full lips, it would probably be better for you to play a low brass instrument such as trombone or tuba.
Yeah, isn't there a section in the movie Mo Better Blues?
Yes.
Where Denzel Washington cuts his lip and suddenly can't play anymore?
Yes, that section is horrifying to me. It's like the worst thing that could possibly
it's the end of his profession is essentially what's...
It destroyed him. He was, at the end of that movie, he was in debt to bookmakers, and they took his trumpet and smashed it across his face. I don't recommend that.
No.